So my name is Bidaux. I'm a consultant in the game industry. I consult companies on a variety of topics, and I really like crowdfunding as a person. So I started to look at crowdfunding out of personal interest. I started to dig some data as well. We partnered with a company that basically crawl crowdfunding websites for data over time. I've personally backed more than 200 projects on Kickstarter. I've worked on a number of them now as well. Being very talkative and sharing a lot of the data got me into working with different projects. So amazing. Worked on 3 campaigns, working on the 4th now. Advised in official capacity more like 30 campaigns now, most of them video games, but not just. And I've been running workshops on games, movies, and music projects for how to do crowdfunding. So that's me. And we'll get started with data. So I mentioned a lot of data. One other thing we have is specifically on Kickstarter. We crawl a lot of data on Kickstarter. We accumulate that. We try to understand the trends there. And I want to start with a bit of state of play. How is the state of crowdfunding for video games in 2018? So you might have seen that. We shared that with PC Games Insider earlier this year. These are all estimates. There's a wide ranging of margin of errors on them. They are probably quite accurate though in terms of the scale. Mostly because our Kickstarter estimates, which is the biggest platform, come from that data we crawled. The big one is exact because there's not too many projects, so it's easy for us to follow that. So the size of crowdfunding for game, in terms of the amount of money raised, last year it was about $25 million, and the year before it was about $25 million. So it's not exploding, it's not increasing. It was close to $45 million back in 2015. A lot of those projects, though, the vast majority of the projects that kind of like drive those swings in terms of the size of the crowdfunding space are big projects. There are very few of them. So like 2015 had Shenmue 3, it had Bloodstain, had a number of like Ukulele as well. They're like big projects that raised multi-million dollars that basically drive that. When you look at Kickstarter numbers and the number of projects funded on Kickstarter year on year, we actually look at slight decline, maybe 347 projects funded for video games last year, coming down from 382. So the margin of like minus 10%, I think, it's not a massive drop. There's still like about a project a day funded on Kickstarter for video games. And if you look at the other platforms, you look at Fig, Hulu, Indiegogo, so the other 3 platforms I keep an eye on because they're the one with a foot inside crowdfunding for video games specifically. They also probably some of them compensate for that of numbers because the diversification that's happening right now. And if you look at how much money is raised, so this slide, so all those blue here are for the project that was not funded, and so there's also fewer projects going on Kickstarter to get funding. So this portion here stays a little bit stable, doesn't swing as much. And you look at 2015, you had like 15 projects raising more than $500,000 versus like 3 last year. But if you look at projects that are in that mid-range, it's kind of like always kind of the same. So for people who go to crowdfund the project, if they are looking to raise between $10,000 to $100,000, that space is not going away. It's not increasing either, but it's not going away. And I'll talk more about what's happening in terms of trends there. But before I go there, there's a few crowdfunding basics. So I do talks probably every 3 to 6 months. I talk about crowdfunding. These are things I always say. So if you see anything in them, apologies. That's the basics. I think it's always useful to repeat these. So fundamental principles in crowdfunding. It's not about people who like your project. It's about people who love your project. This is rule number 1. You need to find people who love your project. And so if you have a project that's kind of cool, It's not probably suitable for crowdfunding. You want something that's freaking awesome for some people. If it's freaking awesome for some people, then you have the basis for a good crowdfunding campaign. The other thing is momentum. It's 100% about momentum. When you launch a campaign, it's almost like the end of a whole process. You want the day one of your crowdfunding campaign to be really, really good. Because otherwise you will not get funded. There's a lot of stats on this, but basically projects who don't get at least 20% in the first 2 days don't get funded. And so it happens that crowdfunding campaigns are at the tail end of the whole process of recruiting those people who find your project awesome and love it. Nowadays, games need to have demos. You need to be able to demonstrate what the game is. Back in 2012, when crowdfunding for video games started to take off, you could have like a cool concept and some name, and people would support you. 2018, I'll talk more about that. You need to be able to demonstrate your game. You need to have a demo, ideally, but at least like live gameplay, something that looks like the game exists. Otherwise, you will go nowhere. John Romero found out the hard way by having a campaign, just explaining his vision and not getting funded. He has name recognition. The last thing is, there's like 3 things that never work, that are very, very, very hard to do, and I will always advise against doing crowdfunding campaign for this kind of project. Free-to-play games, it's the antithesis of free-to-play. Crowdfunding is about securing funding for a game before you can play it. Free-to-play is about spending money in the game after you started playing it and because you like what you play. So very, very free-to-play project meant to get funded. Mobile doesn't work, lots of reasons for that. The price points is very low, free-to-play doesn't work, lots of mobile is free-to-play. And there's a community that's not there for crowdfunding in the market. The last one is kids, because you need to convince parents to support you, not the kids. They are the ones spending the money. And it's very, very difficult to get parents to project themselves in the future and say, give us money for that game that we're going to release in even 6 months. They'll be like, well, my kid might like it today, but I don't know what he's going to like in 6 months, so I'm not going to give you money. So this is kind of like the 3 things that usually raise huge red flags for me. As well, it's very important, the threshold goals. Stretch goals is about when you reach your goal, what to do. You say, well, we get to get funded, but if we get 10,000 more dollars, we'll add a character, we'll add new options, things like that. Very, very simple. This is number 1 advice when I do consulting on crowdfunding campaigns. This is something that comes up so often. I'd rather say publicly and tell everybody about it because this is so frustrating. It's like the rule number 1, you do not announce your stretch goal. You work on your campaign is your goal, this is what you talk about. The rule number 2 is you don't talk about your stretch goals. And I've seen it so often, people see successful campaign do it and emulate that. But this successful campaign probably be announced in the day 1. And also, they are successful, so they have maybe a massive amount of followers, so they can afford to do that sometimes. You can't. Don't do it. Just it's so much easier to keep that into your pocket as a beat, something you can announce when your campaign is kind of slow, or when you finally announce you reach your goal, you have something else to communicate to keep people interested. Part of that rule for the 20% into 48 hours is there's a pacing into crowdfunding campaigns, and they slow down after the initial burst, and keeping that any momentum is very, very difficult. By announcing your stretch goal, you sabotage yourself in a big way. Okay, so I want to talk about the platforms and going back into that first thing about how big is crowdfunding right now. So last year there were like 3 projects that raised more than $500,000. These are the 3 projects. It's the top 3 people. Kickstarter, there was Hashes of Creation, raised $3.2 million. Then the second biggest campaign from last year was a French video game called Noob, based on a web series called Noob, and raised $1.5 million. Anyone heard about that project before here? Okay. You're French? Yes, that's fine. And then the last one was Felix Point from Fig, which raised $765,000. And part of what I want to say to you is the platforms don't matter as much as people think. There's nothing magic behind any of those platforms. What matters are the communities. In each case, basically, the community went to the platform that were driven by the studio behind. They all have their own unique identity. Ulule is a very French platform. The new video game was funded there because it's a French web series. But if they'd gone to Fig, or if they had gone to Kickstarter, they probably would have done a similar amount of money there. So sometimes people spend too much time there. The platforms don't matter as much. More importantly, 99% of the time, they don't bring you the people. You bring the people. So whatever is the platform you use, you should think about more what is the best fit for your culture and what you like. This being said, there's also something that's true, which is Kickstarter is the one with the brand power. If you are agnostic, if you don't have any platform you like compared to the others, Kickstarter is the one that people know about. It's so common for me to work with people who do a crowdfunding campaign on another platform and say, can you help us with our Kickstarter? Because Kickstarter became synonymous of crowdfunding campaign. And they go to Fig, they go to Hulu, they go to Indiegogo, and they still keep using the Kickstarter word to define what that campaign is. So big, that's the default truth, like big brand awareness on Kickstarter that counts. Fig is interesting. Fig allows the mixed crowdfunding. They allow to, at the same time, raise like crowdfunding for rewards, like Kickstarter, get the games, get T-shirts, hard book, deck, things like that. On the other side, they also allow for project equity, not equity in the studio, but equity in the project. If the project makes money, you make money as well, and there's a whole formula over there. And it happens at the same time. Some people love this idea, some people hate it, just know about it. I find that very uncomfortable. I thought it would fail massively because I don't understand how you can communicate at the same time to people who want to love your game because it's a good game, and people who want to love your game because it's a good investment. It happens that people who do the investment are people who actually like games, and the single message is actually working. Fig has a lot of successful campaigns, but it's also not going well with certain people who don't like the idea of funding for equity. Just know that. But it's an interesting model, it's a very different model, and one that has its own pros and cons. And then all the platforms have their unique identities. And I think it's interesting to see what is your strength. And when you look at what is your strength, is the strength is coming from your community. So if you look at Noob and its French audience, definitely that's what makes the project successful. So they went to Ulule because Ulule is a French crowdfunding platform. It has good brand awareness. They could talk to them in French. They managed to get a bit more visibility through that, thanks to talking to them. So they were very happy to go for Ulule because they were French. If you look at projects like Skullgirls, specifically, Skullgirls is a versus game. It was the biggest project on Indiegogo for video games until the same studio did another project called Indivisible that raised $2 million in 2015. And the reason they went to Indiegogo was they had a big Japanese audience. And at the time, it was difficult for Japanese players to actually pay on Kickstarter. So they went to Indiegogo, and they were very successful. And then so successful that they keep using that platform. So just note that. Super quickly, I want to do like a short case study about construction of the tower. First went to Kickstarter, trying to raise $450,000. It failed. They had 4,600 backers, and they had $180,000 pledged. They went to Fig. They asked for a bit less. They were get funded, but they got fewer backers and got more money. That's the Fig power in the sense that people who are incentivized to spend a lot more can go into equity and expect to have some return. And I showed that even more here. This is how many backers they got on Kickstarter. This is how many backers they got on Fig. So like 1,500 more, fewer people. And then you look at Kickstarter. They got $98,000 through their reward system in Fig. Then they got $250,000 through equity. So again, I think it's interesting to understand the specificities of the different platforms and what is you need as a studio and how you're ready to, what you want to compromise and what you want to push forward and what you want to build. That was great to have that kind of case study of one project for another platform, and then to another. I was allowed to share. I'm very little time, so I'll go through that. Very important change in the past few years is the campaign's timing, and I think that's my last point. This is the one that will stick to you. So this was the window where you could launch a campaign on Kickstarter or any different platform in 2012. It's not to be big. You are in the concept phase or in production. That's kind of like when you can do your crowdfunding campaign. Then that's 2014. You can't no longer do like a concept phase, but you can be pre-production, a few visuals, a few things. Then 2 years later, 2016, it's already different. The campaign is like much, the quality of the campaigns, the production value, what people show is much higher. And you need to be, at least when in production, you need to have like good visuals for your game, good video, and it's an essential component. And now, it's like even more than that. You need something that people can play, you need a demo, I was talking about it, and you need something that's visually pleasing. I don't think it's going to move further for video games, but I think it's something that people sometimes don't consider because they remember old campaigns from like 5 years ago and they say that it's still the state of the game. It's not. This is the new state of the game. You need something further. That also means that you need money before, much more earlier than to be able to bring the campaign. The campaigns play now different roles because you can't start your project with a crowdfunding campaign. It's more like midway through or to end your campaign that you can do one. So we've moved the window of production a lot. Now you need demos. The early access is a very strong competitor. When you are so far along into the production timeline, why not release the game in early access? And so that's what we are saying. I think the biggest competitor in the end is not the different platforms with each other. It's more like early access where if you have the right game, maybe getting to early access is just less of a headache, and you can make money for a longer period of time, and you don't have to worry about the whole momentum that you build with a campaign that's very stressful. Also very rewarding, but not everybody wants that. So, not reliable for early funding, not as sustainable as early access. Especially popular with certain games and certain projects. And those are the one with strong brands, because strong brands kind of like cheat a little bit with that timing window. But it's something that window for them is not it's still kind of like further back into the production pipeline. And games which are unable to go to early access. For instance, a game that have a strong narrative, a strong content dependency, you can't have your game with like a very good story going to early access because then the story is spoiled, especially if you have low replayability. So this kind of game, you can still see a lot of them going to crowdfunding because they don't have as much flexibility in terms of their options. And what we see more and more is crowdfunding not for the whole game, but for components of the game. You want multiplayer, you want to port it into certain platforms, you want to add things to the game. That's where we see that people maybe I'll do a crowdfunding campaign even after the launch of my game to add components to it, to fund a DLC. And I think I'm done with the time. Yes, thank you very much.